What's up, guys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. This episode is going to be talking about Joe Biden and actually doing some news. I've been making fun of a lot of people lately. And like I said, there hasn't been a lot of news really going on. Things between Israel and Palestine had gone quiet for a little bit. Now that's kind of come back up here, boiled back to the surface. But it had been quiet in Israel-Palestine, and in Congress, nothing was going on because, like I said, if Joe Manchin's not going to move on anything and make Democrats have to work with Republicans, Republicans aren't going to move on anything, and if Joe Biden's not going to move Manchin on anything, we're effectively at a gridlock, and that's probably how it's going to be for the next 3 years. But I digress. I have a story here that is pretty awesome. A new survey came out from the ACLU that shows there is a way that Joe Biden can make one declaration and do one executive order that he could win re-election and make sure that the Democrats win in the 2022 midterms. And that one thing that he can do is ending the war on drugs and legalizing marijuana via executive order and everything that goes along with that. Now, recently in the news was Kamala Harris, because she went down to Guatemala and did that speech where she was like, yeah, immigrants don't come to our country, just don't come. And she framed it like she was concerned for their safety, but what she was saying tongue-in-cheek is, brown people, don't come to our country because at the border we're going to beat the living shit out of you. I'm Kamala Harris, and I know exactly how police brutality works, especially on immigrants. That's what she was saying tongue-in-cheek. So, seeing as immigration is kind of in the news cycle right now, the war on drugs is the main reason that a lot of these countries get destabilized in Central and Latin America. So you want to help the immigration issue, like, really help it, like tearing out most of the issue at its root, you end the war on drugs. Now here's what the survey said from the ACLU. I'm going to read to you from Common Dreams here. New polling released Wednesday reveals that an overwhelming majority of Americans think so-called war on drugs is a total failure, underscoring broad support for a new approach that puts public health over criminalization and a militarized response to the illegal narcotics trade that has lasted for decades. I can't remember who did the war on drugs. I think it was Nixon. So, I mean, it's like, it's been 50 fucking years. What are we doing? So it goes on to say, the findings released by the American Civil Liberties Union, which is the ACLU, and Drug Policy Alliance showed that 83% of Americans say the war on drugs has failed. That assessment has felt similarly across party lines. 83% of Democrats expressed it, 85% of independents, and 82% of Republicans. So it's agreed upon across party lines. Nearly 2/3 of respondents, 65%, says it's time to end the war on drugs, period. You want to win in 2022 and 2024 despite the abysmal performance of the Democrats so far? End the war on drugs and legalize marijuana. If you do that by itself, you probably can win the midterms. And I'm not going to lie, if you ended the war on drugs and legalized weed, I would probably vote for Biden. Despite all the other shit, he'd give me something to vote for. And you give millions of other people who are nonviolent drug offenders who would get released from prison a reason to vote for you. And everyone agrees with you across party lines. And it's not close. This is an 80-20 issue at best. It's an 80-20 issue with Republicans. It's an 85-15 issue with everybody else. So end the war on drugs, legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana. You'll make a ton of money off of the weed money from the taxes on it. You can rebuild our infrastructure. You can release so many nonviolent drug offenders from prison. You can make sure that people don't have to live in fear of like a little bit of weed in their pocket where they have police beat the shit out of them or arrest them unnecessarily for something that's not a violent offense and should never get somebody in trouble with police or put into prison in the first place. End it all. End the war on drugs. And it'll help with immigration as well. So you don't have to have Kamala Harris standing down there with her scepter going, "Stay away, brown people! Don't you dare come here! I'm Kamala Harris! Don't you know my record of fucking with brown people? You stay away from me! Don't come near me!" How about you just end the war on drugs? It's easy. Just that alone. Make a big speech about it and actually go through the steps of ending the war on drugs. You can tax and regulate all these drugs and you'll make a bunch of money. And we can invest in things like community centers, addiction centers, do things like what they do in the Scandinavian countries, which is they see addiction as a disease, which it is. And when you have legalization of drugs, you don't have a black market of drugs. Once you don't have a black market, You don't get things like tainted heroin that's laced with fentanyl. You don't get stuff on the street behind a dumpster from some dude named Phil that is going to kill you. That's how Philip Seymour Hoffman died. He got his normal dose of heroin, but it was laced with fentanyl, and it killed him because it's illegal where he was. So if you legalize all these drugs, and the only place you can get them is with a prescription written by a medical doctor, and they're never going to end up being tainted or laced or cut with anything gross, then a lot of the OD deaths go down as well. Suicidal ideation goes down. You know, if we don't demonize people that are drug users, a lot of these people, their self-worth is so much higher, and if you fix a lot of the problems based around the war on drugs, a lot of people still won't have to turn to drugs, because a lot of these war on drugs, they would ruin someone's life by putting them in jail for 10 years, and then when they get out, they have suicidal ideation caused by the fact that their life has been ruined by some minor drug offense back in the day. So it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. And I don't want to see Joe Biden reelected, but my man, if you do the just executive order removing marijuana as a Schedule I drug and end the war on drugs, you would get my vote. And I hate Joe Biden. I hate him. But this one thing could win him the midterms, or win him the 2024 election, and win the Democrats the midterms easily. But you got to get it done now. And it would also help with the immigration crisis, which is in the news right now, and it is a problem. You don't want these people coming to our country. The war on drugs has destabilized Mexico horribly. End the war on drugs, and you'll see the immigration process, or the immigration problem right now, dissolve on its own. So take it for what it's worth. That's what I think Joe Biden should do. He'll never do it. But this survey is bananas. I'll put a link to it below. 82% of Republicans, 83% of Democrats, and 85% of independents think that the war on drugs has been a failure, and 2/3 of people want to end it. 2/3. Do you want 2/3 of the voters, Joe? Because you would have them if you ended the war on drugs. But he doesn't want 2/3 of the vote. He's not like FDR. He doesn't want to win big. I'm not even sure that he really wants to win at this point. So keep fighting the good fight, guys. Let's push him on ending the war on drugs, or at very minimum, take marijuana off as a Schedule I drug via executive order. He can do it in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, even with his Parkinson's hand. So keep fighting the good fight, guys. I'll talk to you later.